The security guard finally walked over at 5:47 p.m. "Sir," he said, lowering his voice, "you've been sitting here since morning. If you're waiting for an interview, human resources left hours ago." The man looked up from the little girl sleeping against his shoulder. Then he checked the clock. "You're right," he said quietly. They did. For 8 hours, nobody in the glass tower had asked his name. And in less than 20 minutes, every person who had walked past him would learn exactly why that mattered. At 9:12 that morning, Daniel Mercer had entered the lobby carrying two things, a worn leather folder and his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Not literally in his arms at first. She had been holding his hand. Daniel had promised her pancakes after school, but her babysitter had canceled with almost no notice. He could have stayed home. He could have postponed the meeting. But this meeting had already been postponed twice. So Lily came with him. Daniel was 41, a former firefighter whose left shoulder still ached whenever the weather changed. After an injury ended his career, he had spent years working maintenance jobs, repairing elevators, fixing boilers, doing whatever honest work kept food on the table after his wife died. He didn't look important. His jacket was clean but old. His shoes were polished but worn at the edges. At the front desk, he explained that he was there for an appointment. The receptionist barely looked up. "Name?" "Daniel Mercer." She typed, paused, typed again. "I don't see anything." Daniel checked the email on his phone. "It says 10 o'clock. Then whoever sent it probably made a mistake." She slid a visitor badge toward him. "Have a seat. Someone will find you." Daniel smiled politely. "Thank you." That was the first mistake everyone made. They thought he had nowhere else to be. By noon, Daniel had been ignored by 3 receptionists, 2 managers, and 1 young executive who stopped directly in front of him. The executive stared at Lily, who was coloring beside her father. "Employees aren't supposed to bring children here." Daniel looked at his daughter, then back at him. "I'm not an employee." The man gave a short, impatient laugh. "Could have fooled me." Daniel said nothing. He simply picked up the red crayon Lily had dropped. That silence bothered people more than anger would have. At 12:30, Daniel bought 1 sandwich from the lobby cafe and split it in half with Lily. He ate the crusts because she liked the middle. A janitor named Rosa noticed. Without saying a word, she brought Lily an apple juice. Daniel tried to pay. Rosa shook her head. For her. Daniel looked genuinely grateful. "Then thank you." It was the first kindness he received all day, and Rosa would remember his face when everyone else wished they could forget it. At 1:40, Lily fell asleep against Daniel's chest. That was when the second problem arrived. A woman in a gray suit marched into the lobby, surrounded by 2 assistants. Her name was Victoria Hale, the company's chief operating officer. She had spent the morning dealing with a failed product launch, angry investors, and a board demanding answers. She was exhausted. And when she saw Daniel sitting in the lobby, still wearing the same visitor badge from the morning, irritation found an easy target. "Why is he still here?" The receptionist shrugged. "He says he has a meeting." "With whom?" "We don't know." Victoria turned toward Daniel. "Sir, this is a business headquarters, not a waiting room." Daniel gently adjusted Lily's head on his shoulder. "I understand. Then I'm asking you to leave." For the first time all day, Daniel's expression changed. Not anger. Disappointment. He reached into his folder. "I'd prefer to wait another hour." Victoria crossed her arms. "For what?" Daniel looked toward the elevators. "For someone to remember our meeting." Victoria stared at him for a moment, then laughed under her breath. "Security will escort you out at 5. She walked away. Daniel watched her go. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "That gives them time." At 3:15, the building suddenly went into crisis. A major payroll transfer had failed. Nobody knew why. Thousands of employees across the company were supposed to be paid that evening. The finance department began calling banks. Managers rushed between conference rooms. Victoria's assistants were nearly running. By 4 o'clock, rumors were spreading through every floor. No payroll. No answers. Then the receptionist remembered something strange. The quiet man downstairs had been sitting there all day with a leather folder. She finally searched his name again. This time, she didn't search the visitor system. She searched the corporate database. Her face went pale. "Victoria," she whispered into the phone. "You need to come downstairs." "What now?" I think we made a mistake." At 5:02, Daniel was still sitting exactly where he had been that morning. Lily had awakened and was quietly eating crackers from his bag. The elevators opened. Victoria stepped out first. Behind her came the chief financial officer, the legal director, and 3 board members. The entire lobby went silent. Victoria stopped several feet from Daniel. Her face had lost all its impatience. "Mr. Mercer," she said. Daniel slowly stood. Lily held his hand. Victoria swallowed. "I didn't know." Daniel looked at the reception desk, then at the executives surrounding her. "No," he said softly. "You didn't." That was when the receptionist understood. Daniel Mercer wasn't the CEO. He wasn't secretly pretending to own the company. Years earlier, when Daniel was still a firefighter, he had rescued a businessman from a burning apartment building. The man survived, but never forgot the firefighter who had gone back inside after everyone else had escaped. When that businessman died, he left Daniel a small percentage of his family investment trust. Daniel had never used it to change his life. But over 20 years, that investment had grown. The trust became the company's largest voting shareholder. Daniel had spent months refusing to interfere, until he discovered that payroll systems were being cut, employee benefits were shrinking, and thousands of workers were paying the price for decisions made by people who never knew their names. Today's meeting was supposed to be about that. And the payroll failure? Daniel had already authorized an emergency transfer from the trust that would make sure every employee was paid. The paperwork had been waiting in his folder all day. The same folder nobody had bothered to ask about. Victoria looked down at Lily, then back at Daniel. "You knew this morning?" Daniel nodded. "You knew who I was when I told you to leave?" "Yes." "Why didn't you say anything?" Daniel looked around the enormous lobby. Because for 8 hours, he had watched something more important than his own treatment. He had watched how people behaved when they believed no one important was watching. Then he answered, "Because if people only show kindness after they know your title, it isn't kindness." Nobody spoke. Victoria's eyes filled, but Daniel didn't wait for an apology. He opened his folder and handed the financial documents to the CFO. "The payroll is covered," he said. "But tomorrow morning, we start talking about the people downstairs. The ones you don't see unless something breaks." Then Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy." "Yes, sweetheart." "You promised pancakes." Daniel looked at the clock. For the first time all day, he smiled. "You're right." He took her hand. Victoria stepped aside. So did everyone else. No one stopped him as he walked toward the glass doors. Not because they finally knew who signed their paychecks, but because, for the first time, they understood the difference between knowing someone's position and recognizing their worth. And sometimes, the strongest person in the room is the one who has nothing to prove.